Welcome to N1IR, and sorry about the quality of the video. I'm trying to shoot from my cell phone. There's some exposure issues around the corners here, so it might be a little bit purple. I accidentally dropped my camera and broke the lens on it, so unfortunately it doesn't work anymore. And this is my last camera, so there's probably not going to be many videos from now on until I get a new camera. But anyways, I had a question about AM modulation, and right now I have what's set up right here is a scope and a transmitter transmitting on 1.9 megahertz. And he had a question about the spectrum analyzer and how modulation worked. And rather than using the spectrum analyzer, you can actually see a lot more with the scope, and I chose an analog scope here. You can get analog scopes pretty much anywhere. I got this one free from university, and you can probably pick them up for 20 bucks or so. Later on, when I go over sideband, I'm going to hook it up to the digital ones, and you guys can see the difference between the analog and the digital. So anyways, amplitude modulation. So when I key up the transmitter, right now I have it set on AM, and I have a carrier here. Okay, so when I dead key and no modulation, I have a carrier. So when I speak into the microphone, you can see the modulation right on the carrier wave jumping up and down. That's amplitude modulation. So if I stop talking, you can see just the oscillator going. If I bring this down, so there's my oscillation still there, and if I bring it down to where I can see the audio, now you can actually see my voice. And I'm going to whistle into this real quick, and you can see so there's the modulation right there. You can see it. Now, ideally you want about 80% modulation on your AM. If we crank up the modulation too much, if I speak into the microphone really good, you can start seeing it's starting to splatter and it's over-modulating. You don't want that on AM. You just want it to right about there. That's a pretty good distance from the mic. I'm speaking about 4 inches away from the mic. And, you know, of course you can set your mic gain and stuff on your radio to correspond to that. So that's AM. And let me go back to the carrier wave, and you can actually see the voice modulating on top of the carrier. Alright, so single sideband. Alright, let's switch this over to single sideband. Okay, so I'm on lower sideband right now. And notice I'm keying up right now, and there's no carrier. Until I bring it up and actually start talking, you can actually see the carrier coming out as a sideband. Notice the intensity. It's not as intense as in AM. There's AM. It's nice, crisp. We have intensity. If I go to lower sideband, you don't necessarily see the intensity of the carrier. That's because your frequency is depending on your voice. And you know, I'm going to show that next on the digital oscilloscope. You can actually see it a lot better. So there's my voice information coming over. You can see the voice, and then the carrier information right in the middle there. So that's my 1.9 megahertz carrier in the middle. That's that kind of a greenish tinge. And again, if I go crank it up to where I can just see my carrier instead of the voice, you can see the carrier only appears when I have some modulation in there. So that's, okay, so back to AM again. Okay, so there's AM. I'm talking into it. And there's sideband. So you notice it disappears when I stop talking, and then the sideband appears when I start talking. So this is a little bit different than your spectrum analyzer. This is the scope, and it has voltage versus time. Instead of the analyzer is voltage over frequency. So you can see a little bit more information on the oscilloscope than you would on the spectrum analyzer. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video here and I'm going to set up the digital scope, and you can definitely see the difference between the two.